Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Isla Haddow-Flood. I am one of the co-founders of Wiki Africa, and although we've always offered a prize for the contest has always been a media contest. It's not entirely devoted to photography, but until fairly recently, photography has taken up most of the kind of like the prize categories. And over the last few years, the video side of things has been becoming more and more exciting. And I think it's only in the last year that we implemented specific categories for video. And I'm hoping that this session will be able to let people understand a little bit of the difference between each of the different categories. So if we get started, the video prize categories for this year are narrative video, reportage video, and then obviously a clip video prize. So I know you can read, but these are very specific different formats. There are many different ways that you can make a film. And I wanted to make sure that it was a very specific, but I know that there's a lot of confusion around the types of what each of these categories mean. And so I'm hoping that by putting, by us being able to discuss it, that it would mean that there would be more, we'd be able to kind of understand that better, so that we would have very clear submissions. And in some cases, there have been submissions that are very across different, they have a bit of reportage, they have a bit of emotive, so I think it's just about trying to make it much clearer, so that people who want to, so that they're also very useful, the videos that are submitted are useful for Wikimedia projects. So let's get started. What is a narrative video? So a narrative video essentially is a video that should tell a story. So it's a documentary. All of these are pretty much documentaries, but it's a story. It's a video that should say about what in the theme is about. So it's about the stories behind the issues that are raised by the theme. So if you look at this picture of this potato farmer, what's her family doing? It could be a story about her family and how her family has gone through a blight of potato blight, and which happened in Ireland, and how they've weathered that storm and how they're coming out of it again. So it shows like how essential food security is, not only to us, but to the people who are actually making our food. So those kind of, but it's more it's more emotive. It's about making a connection between the audience and the people inside the story, so that you sympathize with them. You're taken on that story with them. You're taken on the story arc with them. And you have like a clear understanding. It can obviously have information about what's affecting them, but the main story is about them being impacted by whatever the current theme is for Wiki Loves Africa, which is from farm to plate. It should, like most stories, it should have a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. It should have some kind of drama or denouement where the tension builds, that there's something that you're trying to understand, or that there's some element that that reaches a peak, and then then there's a resolution. And it should provide context and emotional engagement with the theme. So it's like it's basically a story that unfolds, and it probably follows one central character or a group of people or a series of people through their through what you are recording. In some cases, it could be that there's been a tragedy, and as we've had with one previous film, a tragedy, and the person goes back to the farm in order to help out, or that there's something kind of like very human elements that are involved. And within this, it requires a lot of, the needs are, you need to plan it, you need to plot, you need to create a script, you need to have, if you wanted to have actors, whether they are like official actors or not, they need to be involved, they need to have words, or they have to be directed. You should have some kind of storyboard. So you should have much more experience about creating the film. It should be filmed over a few days. You would set your certain locations. You would also probably have you'd have establishing shots and filling shots and all sorts of other elements. It would be heavily edited. You would have emotive music. You could have voiceovers. There would be a whole range of different spaces. And then, so does anyone have any questions about what a narrative video is? Because I've got a few examples, and I want to answer some questions before I go through some of the examples. If you want to add questions to the chat, please do so, or you can unmute and ask me a question now. Okay, so I'm going to show one or two of the narrative examples that we have. The ones that we have here are actually, they are the winners of the last of some of they're winners from Wiki Loves Africa, basically. For the narrative story, we didn't have a problem with finding videos for the narrative. It's something that I think videographers really, really understand. I think it's the reportage that's a little bit more tricky for people to understand, but anyway. So let me go back. Yes. I think this one is probably the best one to watch. Can you guys, yeah, let me say, sorry, it has to come up. Can you see that? Dream home?
Yeah, we can see it, but no sound.
Fantastic. Can you hear it?
No sound actually, but we can see the
No
video.
sound.
Yeah.
Okay. No sound?
No sound.
Okay, let me just double check how to pull the sound in here. I'm sorry about that. Shared.
I think you have to unshare your screen, then share with sound.
Is that working? Just hang on. Let me just do it again.
Yeah, it's working now.
Let me start from the beginning. All right. Okay, does everyone see that? Did everyone feel that? Welcome everybody who's come in. So that was the winning entry from, sorry, I'm just trying to get it to back to. Right. These the Wikimedia players don't always play nicely. So that was the winner of 2022's Home and Habitat, and it was a video. At that time we weren't putting them into style categories. They were just whichever one, and this was done by Green Wilfred Simoni from Nigeria. Does anyone want to? You can see very clearly that in that, in that film, although there was very little scripting from a verbal point of view. You could see it was a very clearly, all the shots were set up properly, and then they were storyboarded, and there was a whole range. It was very well planned, so that when he put all of it together, when he edited it all together, you could see that it came out as he intended. Does anyone have any questions about, I can do another. I'm glad we have Booba here, and now I feel a little bit like I'm an imposter in telling people how they should film. But Booba is one of a winner, like a multi-prize winner, multi-year winner of videos. So we do have an expert in the room. Does anyone have any questions about the narrative prize category, about what can be shown, about anything like that? Yeah. Okay. So there are what I can do is I can put these, I don't want to put all of them in at the moment, but I can put in these are the winners. You can see there's Booba's here, 2 of them, and Green Wilfred Simoni is also a multiple winner. I think we've got time. We could probably show one of Booba's films. Which one do you want, Booba? Should we the Santé? So this was for health and wellness from 2021. It's
Eloila, somehow we cannot see the video.
Can't see the video.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah, we are still on that old screen.
Okay, I don't know why that. Sorry, you guys should have told me. Okay. Right, I don't know why that is. Let me stop sharing. Okay, so rather than going, let me go back to that. I wonder why it's not doing that. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I think there should not be two screens. Just gonna give me a second. Okay. So should just be this. Can you see that? No? All right. Can you see that? The santé est bien? Yeah. Okay. All right. Because I wasted time, sorry, doing that. We're gonna. Are there any last questions about the narrative video category? Hi, Evelyn. Hi, Claudia. It's nice to have you. Yeah. Any questions about that before we move on to the reportage category? Okay. I'm going to take that as a yes. All right. So moving on to, can you see that full screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to reportage video. So the idea behind reportage is more like a news insert. It's about being presenting facts and not like an emotive journey. So you're not telling a story. What you're doing is you're informing, you're educating, you're adding knowledge, you're building the case around something that's, that's happening, or something that's around the theme or an element of the theme. In this case, you would be this woman who is on the show. She is say she's well, she's a very well-known chef, and you would build the case around maybe you would use images of her to show like how many people become chefs from within Africa. Like there's a huge amount of people who become kind of like and reach that level of excellence that she's reached. So if she was like cordon bleu or she became the top chef in the country, but you would create, it would be much more about interviewing her. It would be much more about interviewing other people in that industry. It would be about building the context and the understanding of the challenges or the situation. So it could be also something like, I don't know, say talking about the potato farmer. It could be about the price of potatoes and how that affects people in the, people's livelihoods. And you would then interview the farmer, but you would also interview the distributor, and you'd interview the salespeople at the end who are selling the potatoes. So there would be an understanding of all of the processes that are involved, and maybe the government person who's setting the price or whatever it is, so it's a whole different way of looking at a problem. One is about the emotional side of being a potato farmer. The other one is about the industry and what affects potato farming. Yeah. So it informs and educates and adds knowledge. And although there often is kind of like, you can use emotive music, or you can use like more like poetry, a poetic kind of way of presenting the facts. You can the idea is to use the imagery as a way of kind of like unfolding the different facts and figures and the situation. So yeah, it can often include interviews. It could include a fly on the wall style that just observes events unfolding. You can have animated data or infographics. It normally has some kind of data involved, some kind of contextualization of the situation itself. Is there anything else that anyone else wants to add to that or wants to ask about that? Yeah. Okay, so just then moving on with reportage, the idea around that is it's a different process, but it still requires a lot of planning. So you would think up what the issue is. You would do the research into the issue. You would approach potential people to interview. You would do a lot of contextual imagery and filmmaking around the concept, as well as with the, you don't just have several people on screen being interviewed, but you would create like in order to understand, to layer the understanding better, there would be a lot of kind of contextual shots and clips of of whatever the issue is. So if it was like a bottling factory, then you would include those the system and the conveyor belts and the bottle washers and all of those kind of things, as well as the interview with the person. So it would be filler kind of shots as well. You want to have long and short content, contextual kind of understanding of it. You can use emotive music, but there's also, it's a very complicated, it's much more complex in how it's structured. It wouldn't necessarily have to have a storyboard until you were probably just before the editing stage, where you were trying to put everything that you'd captured together in order to make it the story flow. But you definitely have to plan out all of your other elements, so that while wherever you're interviewing people and at the farm, or that you get all those shots. So I think it's a very different way of approaching the filmmaking process. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add to that or ask questions about? Please feel free to add in the chat, or you can just ask, you can unmute and ask if you wish to. Okay. All right, I'm just going to move on. I've got one example here of a reportage video. It was the winner for last year, which is the MasterCard. It's yet again Green Wolford's Simone. You guys have an opportunity to really challenge the Boubacar's and the Green Wolford Simone's of the Wiki Loves Africa space. But it's such a lovely, hopefully you'll be able to see it. Let me know if you can. Can you see the Commons page? Can you see this?
I was carving a fish stool. As I hit the stool.
Can you guys see that? Oh, Hilary, I can't hear you if you're talking. You're muted.
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can see it.
And you could hear it when I said, I just don't want you to wait for another 10 minutes while
Yes, yes. When you played it with it.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to play it now.
Okay.
It's quite a long show. It's 7 minutes, so let's just start from the beginning. Okay.
I was carving a fish stool. As I hit the stool, I noticed that tears were running down my eyes. The moment I stopped carving, the tears will stop. As I go back to carving, it comes again, and I knew that there was some kind of relationship I had with what I was doing. And it deepened my love for wood. I particularly think that art should be functional. There must be a story behind what you are producing for society to appreciate, for society to say, what is this artist up to? Read meanings into what the artist is doing. It's not just doing something that is beautiful. Naturally, a piece of wood can't tell you anything until you release what is in the wood. If you want it to look like you are telling a story that has to do with any form of societal ills and stuff like that, you release it from the wood. And when somebody sees it, he knows exactly what you're talking about. We must look at art as a means of sending a message. Artists are supposed to be there for society, educating society on the good about what nature has created, in trying to show that art is life. But take for instance, I'm a protest artist. You know, I graduated as a graphic artist, but I went into wood carving, and even in the wood carving, I introduced protest into it. If something is going wrong, if something is not too right, as an artist, you should bring it to the fore. My tribe, the Ijaw tribe, they are basically known for fishing, you know, and maybe a little farming. And unfortunately, because of exploration and exploitation by big oil prospecting companies, we don't really have fishermen anymore because of pollutions and all that. And if that goes extinct, it means that what we are known for from that region will eventually go extinct. And you know, fishing, if it's not handed over from one generation to another, it will eventually go into oblivion. My purpose of trying to reenact it as an artist is for posterity to know that at such a given time, this group of persons were known for practicing that profession. Some years ago, I did a fisherman's parlor, and somebody bought it. But this one was an elaborate one. Africa is in the limelight now, and art, as it were, is beginning to be showcased. But then, the emphasis here is how are the younger ones going to benefit from those of us who have been practicing. I wish that they look at art as a venture that is quite lucrative, though you might need to be practicing as much as you can. Me, I've been practicing for very many years now. For me, it doesn't really matter how long you've been exhibiting. One particular exhibition can turn things around. And every other person, particularly the youth, you also think that when you work hard enough, the opportunity to have a breakthrough is always there. If the breakthrough is coming at this age, me, I'm proud, I'm happy about it, you know. And I expect our youth to also think that way, work and benefit later. If wishes were horses, everybody will have been riding them.
Right. So that was beautiful, wasn't it? Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, so it's a bit of a long film, so I didn't want to put others in there, but you can see, even though there weren't a whole load of facts and figures and anything in there, all of the facts came from the artist himself. The theme was Africa Creates. And so it was about the creative process. It was about the driving behind the creation, and it came through the interview, very beautifully shot interview, but you could see all the filler information, you know, all the filler filler shots that made the beautifully placed, very gorgeous film, basically. And so in that way, the use of music was very well done. It wasn't too intrusive, but it helped to pull the story along. But in this case, it was definitely, as you saw, it was about being present. It wasn't like there was emotion that came from seeing such beautiful things and hearing the things that he said, but the emotion wasn't in the story itself. Yes. So moving on, do we have any questions, sorry, about the do you have any questions? Please, I'm a new member of Wikimedia. How do we import these videos to Wiki Loves Africa? So I will tell you, I'm talking at the moment about the three different styles for the three different categories. Then we will talk about the different formats for uploading. Does that answer your question, Claudia? Yeah? Okay.
I have one question.
Sorry?
I have a question.
Okay, ask.
I'm a new member of the Wikimedia, but I don't know how import this video on Wiki Loves Africa.
Okay, so I will tell you, but I'm just telling you at the moment what the formats or the styles that we're accepting for the different prize categories. And then we will look at the different types of formats that we can use in order to upload. And then also I'll talk you through the upload process. I'm not going to do the full upload process, but I will definitely do that. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
I have a question.
Sure.
If I like this theme for the year says from farm to plate, if I should give a video of how to prepare a dish from the beginning, like let's say you're doing a moi moi, how you wash the beans, grind it, and I'm speaking, telling the process, the story of this, like saying now I've taken the beans to the engine for grinding, and then now I'm mixing it, I'm cooking it. At this point, the food is ready. What type of a video? Is it a repertoire or a story or what? What do we call that?
So I think that would be more reportage, because it would be more like a how to do it kind of thing. It's, you know, so yes, so that would be like a, I think it depends on how you frame it. So if it's a film of somebody doing it and a little, you know, somebody running off to go and get this done, and it's all, then that could be the story. But if it's you narrating, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and you know, I chop this and we need to get this ground here, though that's more of a reportage kind of space. But if you put the wrong category, it's fine. We would, you know, we're happy to, we would be able to see that in the visual, in the jury kind of process when we're doing the selections. So even if you say this is reportage, you don't have to say that, but it helps. But even if you say this is reportage and we actually think it's much more kind of a narrative video, we would move it over. We would include it in the narrative space. Does that answer your question? Was that Evelyn who asked?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, but Evelyn, I would also try and make something like that, because that could take a long time. So try and make sure that it's very well edited, but also that there are other elements in it that makes it lighter, because it's, you know, because it could be quite time heavy, and it could be you'd need to think around like how to make it interesting to watch. Okay?
Yes, okay.
All right, good. I really don't advise just putting a static camera in the kitchen and just and then using that as what the download. It really needs to be scripted, even if it's just you. I would go through it and then choose your shots and make it different, visually very interesting, in order to do that, and pace it. Make sure the pacing is interesting. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions? Claudia, I'm not entirely sure at the moment what you're. I haven't got to it yet, so just wait for me to get to that after we finish talking about the other bits. Okay, right. Anything else about the reportage side of things, or any comments or any suggestions for other? You can please, if you have videos that you really think would be a good example of reportage, please share them as well. In the chat, that would be great. Okay, so going to a clip video. So the clip is basically a time, like it's just either a time lapse or a small, it's a very short, very simple, uncut, one take to show the process of how something, of something that's happened, or something that's happening, or something, or how something is done. So it's not often, it's, you can do some editing. Obviously you could do a series of very short things, but mostly it's just something that you would see, say, you know, on the Threads video, or I'll show some examples just now. It could be part of footage from a longer video if you were already shooting a much longer narrative or reportage video, and this just is a very good example. So the idea behind the clips is that instead of it just being a photograph of one of the concept of to illustrate an article, it's a clip. So it could be a penguin walking down a beach and then going from being waddling and being uncomfortable walking into this very smooth glide into the water. Or it could be a time lapse of a maize plant growing, or it could be, you know, so there's a whole load of different things. It's mostly raw footage, and the concentration is about that one thing. So it shouldn't be complicated. There should be no storyline. There should be no complexity. It should just be focused on the one item that you're trying to illustrate or trying to show. Okay. So as it says on the slide, can you guys see the slide still? Yeah.
Yes, we can see this slide.
Good. It could be footage from a longer, just a clip, but it's raw footage or time lapse or a single take, or in some cases drone footage, or focus only, and it focuses only on the one subject. It could have ambient sound, so you could still keep, if it's important. So if it was a bottling factory, and how the whole process from when the bottle was cleaned to being filled and being packaged, that whole system could have all the clacking of the machines and the bottles rattling and that ambient sound. It could be with sound, it could be without sound, it could be with audio, or it could just almost be like a GIF, as in it's very, very simple. So when you're setting that up, the planning is about beautiful lighting. It's about static imagery, and it's the motion. You can either put your camera on a tripod, or, you know, it's about making sure that the focus is very much on the subject on the subject matter. Very clear, very precise, as little noise, like visual noise, as possible. And planning for that shot is also quite important, but it's not as laborious as, you know, any of the other of doing a whole. That's why it's not as much as a prize category, because it doesn't involve as much planning and as much editing and as much time investment as that. Do you guys want to see some? I put together some clips so that you can see the type of, they're not really the ones that we've got from Wiki Loves Africa, but it just gives you an example of what's possible. Let's see. Here, this one is. So I wouldn't suggest doing the graphics. The graphics are not the best thing, I have to say, but otherwise it's quite a cool little clip of showing like what it's like to go through the Panama Canal with all the locks and everything. And that obviously is sped up over 11 hours or whatever, however long it takes. This is a very, very simple version, very, very simple clip, but very relevant to the theme. think it just goes on like that, but essentially you get the picture. It's a bowl of blueberries being created, and very, very simple shot of that. What I did want to show you was the tornado, which I thought was, I'll start up here. And this is a case where obviously it hasn't necessarily been set. I mean, it's been set up in that people have set it up, but this is at the right time, you know, so somebody's in the right place at the right time. There's no sound, but you can absolutely see this quite scary funnel of the tornado forming. Yeah. So, and that's, I mean, that's pretty, a pretty clear clip, the way even though there's other noise at the bottom, the main focus is on the actual event that's happening and that they're trying to illustrate. I think the main thing, did you guys see that? Was that included in the thing? Yeah. And then this is just a very simple looped GIF as well, which I think is like very, I don't know if you can see it full screen there. Can you see that? It's just a looped GIF of showing very clearly how an elevator works, an escalator works. So I don't know how they got permission to be there at that time with nobody in it, but anyway, there you go. And I think the last one is this, which is, I just thought it was quite relevant, but it's basically about something growing. So it's a time lapse of how a cactus grows. Again, beautifully lit and kept wherever it is, but the time lapse obviously allows for the difference in how it works. Yeah. Excuse my dog barking in the background. Okay, so that's just a few shots about different types of clips that, and the whole idea is to have a much more kind of encyclopedic idea of it. Yeah, so to give kind of like an encyclopedic focus on one topic, on one thing, and a very clear, simple message. All right, any questions about the clips and what we're looking at there before we move on to commons and video? Any questions, guys? On the cat, excuse the puppy. Okay, all right. So we're going to move on to the commons and video. So Wikimedia Commons, as you know, is the repository where all of the entries for Wiki Loves Africa is going to go onto. And for those of us who actually are part of Wiki Loves Africa or part of the Wikimedia Commons, it's not the easiest place for video. As you can see, it doesn't really show video very well. The media player can be a bit clunky. And I know that the foundation is looking into supporting Wikimedia or concentrating on supporting Wikimedia Commons better over the next few years, but it's still, there's been a lot more concentration on other projects for the last few. But I know that the priority is the commons and how it's going to, how it applies media. It's a big problem for all of us Wikimedians. So you're not alone if you do think that it's not as up to speed as some of the rest of the spaces. So the submission formats, because Wikimedia Commons, because Wikimedia Commons is about open licensing, it can only use formats that adhere to that. So there are some proprietary licensing, some proprietary tools for, please can you, formats that are used for especially for video. And so when you can shoot and edit in whatever video formats work for you, but you have to convert those to a WebM.ogv or .ogg format. And the best way to do that is to use the handbrake tool, is to convert from your MP4 or whatever it is, format that you have been using, to then convert it. Use the handbrake tool in order to convert that. Yeah. Are there any questions about that actual conversion? There is, if you go onto the how to enter page, a lot of what I've been talking about is actually on that page. And there's also some other kind of tools of how to upload. So how to, you know, convert your file. So there's the link to the handbrake tool, but there are other things like the video cut tool. There's other things that you can include that help you, can help you in your video process. Okay. And just a point on when you do upload your image, or sorry, your video to Wiki Loves Africa, please use the Wiki Loves Africa funnel. So you use the same as from the upload wizard, basically, which comes from the main space. Here, this upload wizard that's on our main page. I'm just trying to get the link for you. Copy link address. So the idea would be to use that. You must use that, and it should, once you have converted your video to that, to the formats that are acceptable, it will upload it. Please also include in the description. So don't include in the title. So the title should be entitled whatever title you want to give it, whether it's like the potato farmers of Benin, or if it's the whatever it is. I don't, you know, I'm only using, please do not make a film about potato farmers in Benin just because I've mentioned it. But if just make your title and then include your obviously who it is and how you wish it to be credited to you, but also ensure that if your description, you can have like, this is a reportage film about blah blah blah, or at the end of the description include like which category you think this is a clip for Wiki Loves Africa or whatever it is, so that it's easier for us to see what you intend it to be rather than us decide for you what category you want to apply it to. Are there any other questions about that? We are on the top of the hour, so are there any other questions about anything to do with videos and the Commons and Wikimedia Commons? Also, please, when you are editing your when you are editing and putting audio in, please make sure that your audio is freely licensed. So don't include like the latest rock band or whatever it is that's in your area. Even if they are local people and you know them, you need to get that signed off under a CC license before you can use it. If it's something like a radio that's playing in the background, then, you know, and it's only for a second of the clip, or it's just indistinct noise, that's fine, as long as it's not the main track, or that there's more than a minute of that track in your edit. And don't cut up little well-known things into minute-long collage, because that's not going to work either. Are there any other questions around this? Okay, so I think we're pretty much done. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for putting up with some of the technical glitches and the dogs barking in the background. And I can't wait to see what you guys are going to submit. We're very excited. And please, if you have any questions, reach out either on the Telegram channel. Hilary, can you make sure that that's, I'm sure that you all know about the Telegram channel, or reach out to Hilary and he will, if you have any questions for me, he will be able to get them to me. All right. And thanks so much. Thank you, Spuba and Mansita, for sitting through something that you probably know much more about than I do. And thank you all for being here, and have a great evening.